Welcome to the Worthy Women's Entrepreneurial Seminar Series. Today is our first live stream. Sorry, we was having some technical difficulties, but we're going to get streaming right now. Thank you for joining us. So today's topic is embracing your inner bitch. I know when you hear that, oh my God, really, you want to embrace your inner bitch, because we're going to turn that definition around from what it normally means, because what we really all need to be sometimes is a bitch in this world. This is a dog-eat-dog world, and if we don't sometimes embrace our inner bitch and what it takes to really move forward, we end up at the bottom of the totem pole. So today we're going to talk about embracing her and not throwing her away. This is a disclaimer that says that this is intellectual property. It cannot be copied or reproduced without the express written consent of Miss LaTia, LLC. Topic number 222, embracing your inner bitch, the business of being a boss. The business of being a boss is super important, because we go into business and it is just that, it's business. It's not, if you're not a nonprofit, it's not fluffy, it's not cushy, it's not soft, it's business. And that's where women have to learn to separate relationships, separate emotions. We have to separate, because in the business of being a boss, sometimes the job is not easy. First of all, nobody wants to be her, okay? This is the classic definition of a bitch. We all know her. We've worked with her. She's annoying. We have had some interaction with her. No one wants to be her. This is not the way we get our needs met. This is not the way that we move the mission forward. What we're going to talk about in here is really how to be a bitch in the right manner. Number one, language is power. The ability to establish strong lines of communication is power. The ability to establish strong lines of communication is power. Failure to do so undermines your authority and effectiveness. A lot of what it takes to be a boss, a lot of what it takes to be a leader, a lot of what it takes to drive the mission, no matter what it's a personal mission, a career mission, any mission. If you're trying to drive a mission in your relationship where you're just trying to get your husband to do something, the power of communication is everything. And your failure to execute that communication in a way that the person can receive it undermines your effectiveness, and it undermines your authority. Because as people, we all learn in different ways, right? Some of us are auditory learners, some of us are visual learners, some of us are kinesthetic learners. It's important that you have to be conscious of the learning for the person that you're talking to or the person that you're interacting with, because no matter what, you want the person to get the message, right? So there's two types of language. One is weak language, which we're going to spend a little bit of time on, because this is really where women are disadvantaged, because we use a lot of weak language. I statements. Using I statements when really you're not even talking about yourself. That is a passive way of pacifying a situation. You don't want to appear that you're laying blame, so you include yourself, when in fact you may not have nothing to do with it at all. So I statements, and we're going to spend some time on I statements, because I statements is really important when we're talking about communicating effectively. Using fuzzy and emotional words. These are really, certainly, sure, instead of saying definitive statements. Or you might say something like, oh, I just wanted to tell you that I need to leave early. When more effective is, I need to leave at 12. That's a different, a person is receiving that differently than when you're fuzzying it up and you're babying it up. It's about being assertive and being direct, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. Hedging, not being clear. Oftentimes we spend too much time saying what we don't mean, as opposed to saying what we mean. Just say what you mean. Whatever you need the person to get, just say it. It's much more easier than trying to massage and turn around and flip it up and make them feel good, and you don't want to hurt feelings. There's no room for that in business. In business, the truth of the matter is you're going to hurt some feelings. In business, the truth of the matter is sometimes you have to be direct to get the job done. In business, the truth of the matter is that you have to be clear and precise about what you want and what your expectations are. because that's what the person can receive. When we cuddle it up and we use nice, pretty, soft, pink words and we make it all fuzzy and everybody's feeling good and it's nice and smushy, the mission is not met. Using passive language. We're going to spend some time on this on the next slide. Using passive language. And is anybody familiar with or have any experience with a passive-aggressive person? That's the worst. I would rather you be overt. I would rather you be overt. I would rather know exactly who you are. It's especially in kids. My son, passive-aggressive. It's like, it's never what he's doing, is what he's not doing. And he's so just passive about it. People that use continually and routinely passive-aggressive language, you have to be keen to these people, the strategy of people that communicate in this way. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Lack of eye contact. When you're having dialogue and you're communicating with someone, the ability to be able to maintain that eye contact is really important. It's really important for you in delivering your message, but also it's really important in how the person is receiving your message. And so even if you're not sure, one of the greatest gifts you can do for yourself and you is learn to execute eye contact with people when you're speaking, when you're listening. Some of us are on our phones, and probably maybe because he does this to me, but I've consciously gotten into a habit of now, when I'm in communication, not being on my phone. Not even scrolling, not checking, because I was good for, my husband will be talking to me, and I'm like, I'm listening. He was like, you're not listening, you're scrolling or you're texting, you're doing whatever, when in fact I wasn't listening. So the art of effective communication starts with two people. It starts with the person that's doing the communicating, and it starts with the person on the receiving end. So making eye contact and listening. Now, I needed to bring home the point about the I statements because I see them all the time. If a sentence says, I can relate to that. Executives never want to hear anything bad. Well, who is the subject? The subject is the executives. You, the person I, has nothing to do with that statement. So what do you think a more direct way could have been to say the same sentence without using I? Anybody want to take a shot at it? Okay, so we're not going to do all of them for a time's sake. But for instance, I can relate to that. Executives never want to hear anything bad. The subject is the executives. So a more direct sentence would have been, executives don't want to hear complaints from coworkers. Period. That has nothing to do with me. There's nothing I should take personally. That's nothing in describing that particular situation I should inject myself into. It makes me weak as a communicator, and the other person does not receive what I'm saying as effectively. I don't have enough time to complete the job. What's the subject? The time, right? And the job. So I don't have enough time to complete the job is one way to say it, but I have several tasks that I need to do by 10 o'clock. They're not going to get done. That's a different way to say it. It's a more direct way to say it. You have a couple of these in your packets that we'll go to in a moment. I statements show insecurities. I statements send the listener off into the wrong direction, and it weakens you in several ways. Now you have in your, you don't have to take copious notes, you have these in your handouts. Number one, it implies blame for you in situations where you are not at fault. And I see a lot of managers doing this because you're trying to exude a team spirit, and team is great, and generally, yes, in a managerial setting, when you speak, you want to speak in terms of team, but even then, it's we. It's more like we as opposed to I. I puts the blame on you, and it takes the responsibility from the other person that really should get the feedback. Feedback is good for people. Feedback helps people to grow. I think we do people a disservice when we don't give honest, critical feedback that can help them in their growth and development. I statements weaken your leadership by making you seem less businesslike and less mature, because I statement is usually followed by a fuzzy word. It's usually, I really, I just, those are fuzzy words. And the next point makes it easy to follow up with one of those fuzzy words. The balance that we need to strike is, how do I not be soft and pink, but then again, I don't want to be masculine either, because there's a consequence for communicating in that style as well. Power of language of men sacrifices femininity, and it sacrifices our integrity. If you're trying to if you're in a boys club and you're trying to jump into the boys conversation, so you're talking with profanity and you just want to be one of, it doesn't strengthen you, it actually weakens you in that position, as opposed to being assertive and being secure with what it is that your thoughts and feelings are. So we have to, there's a balance between the two, and the balance between the two is really, as women, as leaders, as bosses, what we have to practice. Another masculine way of communicating is speaking problem-oriented. They speak problem-oriented. This is the problem. This is the problem. But when you want to be an effective leader and you want to be a one who can get his or her thoughts across, you want to be solution-oriented. It's like, okay, this is the problem, but these are the options for potential solutions. So let's look at these. How can we get from here to here? And when we want to have more clear language, we want to refrain from being problem-oriented. So we can't, and we haven't even gotten into the steps yet, because this is just basic information that when you talk about embracing that assertiveness, because that's all it is. It's assertiveness. Women who are decisive, women who know what they want, women who know where they're going, women who have an opinion, they're bitches, period. But once you turn that definition around to something that empowers you, then you don't see it as the same. So we have to talk about language and communication, because that's really the foundation of that. So assertive versus aggressive. Aggression targets the other person and is full of negative energy, right? So of course, I'm sure we all know people who are aggressive. Aggressive versus, when you're speaking aggressively, it puts the listener down and depreciates them, right? Has anyone ever been on the receiving end of someone who was aggressive or who was communicating in an aggressive way? It ignores the other person's opinions and views. If you're speaking to a person in this manner, whether they're an employee, whether they're a potential partner, nothing gets solved in this lane. Nothing gets solved in this lane. Aggression bears nothing but more aggression, because if you visualize it, one person speaking aggressively to another person generally raises a result, and that person starts to speak aggressively, and now it's a full-blown argument. So we have to strike a balance. And it dismisses the other person. Whereas in assertion is influenced with integrity, and it uses positive energy. It's more refocused. It's not blaming. I'm not blaming you. This is the problem that we find ourselves. This is the issue we find ourselves having right now. How can we mediate? What do we need to do to eradicate this particular problem? No fault of anyone. What can we do differently? What can you do differently? What can I do differently? This works in relationships, it works in business, it works everywhere. It's the art of assertion. It's about being clear with who you are and what you want, and coming to an understanding with the person who is listening to you and the person that you are in relation with. So it's non-blaming, and assertive language highlights the problem, and it takes the focus off of the person. A lot of times that's where people really get in their feelings, because you could be giving constructive criticism and you could have all the right intention, but when you're being problem focused and you're speaking directly to a person, generally they do what? Take it personally, when the intention is not that. So you have to stay rooted whenever you're in communication and you're discussing any particular situation. Highlight the problem. Keep the focus on the problem. If you keep the focus on the problem, and sometimes in relationships, especially with men, you're gonna have to rear them and keep bringing them back to what the problem is, because they tend to go off. No offense, but it happens. Offer solutions. One of the things that I always say, and I said this to my kids when they were growing up, don't bring me a problem without a potential solution. I'm not here just to dump your problems. If you're coming with a problem, come with one or two possible alternatives to remediate that problem. If you set that up and you make that an expectation, especially if you have younger kids, if you make that an expectation, then you get them in the mindset early of thinking solution-oriented and not laying blame and looking at the problem for what it is, right? Okay, if you look at your handouts, there's a particular one in here that I just want to go over really quickly. The first one talks about passive and assertive language. We have the original statement, I have a problem with my late assistant, he is often late. A passive way to express this statement, my assistant has a problem, he is often late. An assertive way is my assistant's lateness make him non-promotable. It's more direct. We're taking the lateness of the assistant and applying it specifically to how it impacts the business, which is always the way to go, because you don't want to, especially a person who's getting continual feedback, sometimes they start to internalize it, and we don't want to do that, but we also want to make sure that we are communicating in a way that's effective. I have a problem with my boss. She doesn't support her group. That's the original sentence. A passive way to say that sentence, my boss does not support her group. An assertive way to say the same sentence, my boss doesn't work late, so the team feels unsupported. The person receiving that sentence in the assertive way is going to better understand why the boss isn't supportive, as opposed to making a general statement like my boss has a problem, my boss doesn't support us. Even when you're praising someone, and this take into consideration when you're dealing with people in general, when you're praising someone, it's not effective to say you did a good job. You did a good job tells me nothing. If I'm an employee, or if I'm an employee and you say to me as a supervisor, you did a good job, I don't have an incentive to do it again because I don't know what I did right in the first place. So you need to say, so instead of saying you did a good job, you showed up for the project on time, you were at every meeting, you were prepared with your notes. You have to tell the person exactly what a good job is. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. When you're dealing with people, you need to be specific. No warm and fuzzy. We need to take the warm and fuzzy out of our communication and embrace the fact that being assertive is okay. I don't have enough time to complete the job. That's the sentence. And you will hear that. Remember those I statements. I don't have enough time to complete the job. The schedule prevents the job from being completed. That's a passive way. An excessive workload and limited staff makes completing the task in a timely manner less likely. That's a more concrete way. That's a better way for the person who's receiving that feedback to really understand why you don't have time. So there's a lot more. I'm just going to do a couple more. When we talk about assertive language on your second sheet, saying no, that's a reason that saying no is number one, because as women particularly, we have a problem saying no. And we really need to practice. Like, you need to practice saying no, because the problem is when you continually say yes, eventually you're operating on zero fumes for yourself. You're operating on zero energy for yourself. And people are takers. People are takers. People are going to take as much as you can get. If you say, I'm going to be the president of 25 clubs, 25 clubs is going to have you as the president. Because they have a position that they need to fill, and you don't know how to say no. So we have to learn and understand when we need to say no, and be okay with saying no. That's where hurting feelings comes into play too much with women, and particularly in business. So the goal is to say no. How to say it? No, I'm not going to be able to do that. It's really simple. It's only difficult when we try trying to find an alternative way for saying what we really mean, when you should just say what you really mean. If you say what you really mean, then it puts it on the table and the other person can receive it much more readily. The technique to use, every time the person tries to bring you back to the original question, say it each time they push back, and you'll see this. You'll see if you tell a person no, they'll come back, they'll rephrase the question. I still can't do it. They'll rephrase the question and throw in some incentives. That's great, and I appreciate the incentives, but I still can't do it. It's a matter of being consistent, and it's a matter of standing your ground. It's important in life, and it's important in business. There's a couple more. I'll do one or two. Stick with your values. Stick with your values. When we are attempting to gain understanding and assert ourselves, we always want to stick with what's important for us. I don't want to do that. It makes me uncomfortable. Sometimes when we're working for people, it's harder to assert this because we feel like when we are employed or when we're in the workforce, we feel like you're kind of at the beck and call of your employer, so it's like anything goes. But I've been in plenty of positions in my professional life where I said, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not comfortable with that. You can do it, but I don't feel comfortable with it. And it's important that you feel empowered enough to say that, because people will back you into a corner and get you into situations that's not going to be beneficial to you nor your business. The next one is maybe if you want to break a pattern. This is fun, but I love to see X, Y, and Z. So if you're in a meeting situation and you have a person who's continually being awarded, or their suggestions are always being taken into account, and you're just tired of it and you would like to see some creativity, you would like to see something new, you just simply say, you know what, that sounds awesome. We did that a couple of times, but this sounds like it could yield even better results. There's a technique in how to communicate and how to be effective, and we really should utilize and practice some of the things that we have here. So you have that to look at your leisure. On your last handout, you have a page that says your communication should do something. It's a list of words here which describes when you're talking to someone what you should always be trying to do. When you're speaking, you need to understand exactly what your role is in that conversation so that you can always be executing one of these words. Language should always be doing something. Either you're alerting, you're clarifying, you're explaining, you're describing, you're doing something. Your words should not just be words. There should be a goal to whatever your message is. So number one, we're going to redefine bitch as we know it. And the first way to be empowered by it, the first way to really embrace it and to embrace that part of ourselves is to really redefine it. And in the redefinition, you are the best individual to change how. The best individual to change how. To change how what? You're the best individual to change how. The best individual to change how. To change how everything is done. Everything centers on you as an individual. You are the nucleus of everything that goes on around you. What we have to understand and realize as women, everything kind of revolves around us. How well will your household be, will your household function without you navigating all those components? How well will your husband or your partner execute without you in the background making those things happen? How well will they execute their own lives without you in the background putting things together? So you have to embrace that and understand that everything kind of revolves around you in terms of how you see yourself and how the world sees you. You okay? You are empowered to control your outcomes. If everything is centered around you, you are the nucleus of kind of everything that spawns from you, whether it's your family, your business, obligations. If you are the center of that, then you are also the center of the one who gets to determine how things impact you. And that's one of the ways in which we women, we overload here, because we don't take into account how we personally are impacted by some of our own decisions. until we're way down the bottom. And we're looking at all of the stuff that we've allowed to be laid upon us. Some things we control. A lot of things having to do with us, we control. We're empowered to control the outcomes. You know why you're empowered to control the outcomes? Because you're empowered to dictate who comes into your life, when they leave, how long they stay, what situation you allow yourself to partake in, how that situation impacts you. If you don't get the result or yield the benefit of that interaction, how you allow that to impact your life. Even when you're talking about adversity, of which we will all experience, I promise you, if you haven't experienced it, you will. It's coming. Hold your hat, because it's coming. Even with adversity, it's up to you, the individual, to determine how you want to allow that adversity to impact you. It can help you or it can hinder you. How do you want to use that adversity? You are in total control of that. So you are empowered to control your outcomes. And when you're empowered and when you really feel like you're empowered to control your outcomes, that in and of itself should be changing, life-changing. Because a lot of times we go into situations with self-defeating attitudes, and we've already thought ourselves out of success a long time ago. Opportunity hasn't even presented itself well, and we've already outthought ourselves. When you really start to believe that you are empowered to control the outcome, that's when we're talking about how impacting how everything is done. You are in control of who enters your world and for how long. If you are in a relationship that you feel like is not productive, if you are in a business relationship or situation that you feel like is not productive, you have all the power. I don't know why we get into situations where we feel like we don't have the power. You have the power because you have the power to dictate who comes and goes in your life. That's one of the things that we have as free will. And I think as women, we don't execute that enough. We take too long, we stay too long, we take too much before we get to our breaking point, when a lot of times, a lot of that can be cut in half by standing up for ourselves and standing in our own convictions and being who we want to be as the nucleus of our own world. We do too much allowing other people to impact our world. Like you don't have the right to come and impact my life. You understand that? Does that make sense? You are the driving force of where you want to go. You are the driving force of where you want to go. It is not your job. Your job is a vehicle. Your business is a vehicle. It's about you. It's about where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself going? What do you see yourself doing? What is at the end of all of this for you? You are in control of that. You are the driving force of that. No matter what vehicle you're using to get there, ultimately you are the driving force of that. So when we start to embrace that, when we're redefining bitch, you're the best individual to change how. To change how what? To change how everything is done. To change how everything is done. You're the best person for that when you're talking about navigating your own life. And we get to a point where sometimes we allow external factors, people who don't have our best interests, situations that we know we should have gotten out of a long time ago, jobs that are not fulfilling where there's no elevation. We allow all those things to impact the fulfillment to which we live our own lives. And we have to stop doing that as women. Because we can't reach the levels of success where we want to reach as a group if we don't empower ourselves to do that. Step 2. Speaking of which, embrace being empowered. You are supposed to lead. I don't know why we get into situations and we feel like we are supposed to be not as great as. Even when we go into business, we don't go into business thinking that our company is going to be the best at what we do. We go into business to survive. We just want to make a little money. We want the ends to meet. Wrong. You're supposed to lead. You're supposed to be successful. You're supposed to be on top. You're supposed to be in the front of the room. Nothing is more annoying than walking into a room that's chairs are everywhere and you take the back seat. That's like taking the back seat in your life. You're supposed to be at the front of the room. The people at the front of the room are getting more, they're getting the information in a better way. The people at the front of the room are getting greater recognition. The people at the front of the room are getting more exposure. You're supposed to be at the front of the room. The only time I sit in the back is if there's absolutely nowhere else to sit. But if the front seat is open, I'm taking it. And if they ask, do I have something to say, I'm saying it. Whatever it is. You're always supposed to be at the front of the room. Stop thinking, acting, speaking like an underdog. This is one of the greatest things that hold us back. We think we're not supposed to get there, or we think we don't have the tools to get there. We think we don't have the resources. We think we aren't as good as we've seen other people in the business. We think that way. That already, and I was just talking about that a few minutes ago, it already takes us out of the game. You've already thought yourself out of the game. When you think, you act, and you speak like an underdog, guess what? The person you're speaking to sees you as an underdog. Fake it until you make it. And while you're in the process of making it, educate yourself on every single thing you need to know about what you're doing. And when you get an opportunity to speak about it, speak about it. Occupy the front row in life. This goes back to what I was saying on the previous slide. When you're occupying the front row in life, that means that you're not allowing opportunities to pass you by. Sometimes we allow our own insecurities, and it happened to me last year. We allow our own insecurities to get in the way of the opportunities that are being presented to us. Because why? We're thinking, acting, speaking like an underdog. We're not seeing the opportunity for what it is. Instead of taking it for what it is and riding out the wave, we're thinking, acting, speaking like we're not the best person for the job. So this Verizon interview that they did was 2 years in the making. They called last year to do what they did this year. And I was not ready. I was feeling so insecure. I was like, oh my God, I want to be fat on TV. It was like all these things going through my mind, and I allowed that opportunity to pass. And I allowed it to pass, and I don't have a whole lot of regrets in my life. I take life as it comes. It is what it is. If you ask me for some, I have a couple, not that many. That was one of the times where I felt like I didn't act in my power. And I was disappointed in my own self. And so I was happy when they called this year. They called this year on a Monday, and it was like, you need to shoot tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. That's why I looked terrible on that interview. Like, everything was bad, I thought. Most people don't think. I thought everything was bad. I thought June was great, Heidi was great, everything about me. All I saw was bad makeup and hard nipples. I was like, oh God, everything was bad. But they called on a Monday evening, and it was like, okay, but we need to shoot this tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. I said, I'm not going to stand in my way again. I'm not going to stand in my way again. So I seized that opportunity. So you have to occupy the front row in life. You have to, if you're going to be in this thing, especially if you're coming into entrepreneurship, if you are serious about this thing, you have to occupy the front row. Because there's businesses being started up every single minute. 90% are going to fail. What part of the percentage are you going to be in? This, when you talk about entrepreneurship, this is serious. This is, you have to be willing to go down and burn with your business if that's what it takes. I can't tell you how many people have had to go back to the starting board when you talk about their business and how they need to reinvent it. Because reinvention has to happen. This is why we're joining you today, or you're joining us, because we're reinventing. We need to allow for other people who need what we have to be able to access us. You have to be constantly evolving. Business is evolving. We're evolving as women, and we can't shy away from that. We have to take it head on. So what you're going to essentially be doing is building on your most assertive behavior. I'm a Leo. I'm pretty assertive. This is not an area of development for me. But as people, as women, you need to build on your most assertive behavior. Like that one thing about you, that one behavior about you that you can see. So can anybody here think of anything? one assertive behavior, like something that you can do that's pretty effortless, that shows assertion. Even if it's just one. And build on that. And build on that. That's how you become more assertive. That's how you start to occupy the front of your life, the front row of your life. Build on that one thing. And as you build on that one thing, it'll become a lot more easy. Step 3, act in your own authority. The confident quality of knowing what you're doing. And I alluded to this a little bit ago. As a boss, you're responsible for establishing the rules, making the decisions, enforcing the obedience, and moving the mission forward. What's more important probably than all of that is that you at least act like you know what you're doing. There's no worse thing that a boss or a business owner who does not have a clue about what they're doing. And it shows. It's like, okay, able to present in a way that other people can receive it and you appear knowledgeable is one thing, and then you go home and you really do all the homework and you look it up and you do all the research and you get the impact, that's one thing. But to absolutely not know what you're doing in your business is a disgrace, and you do yourself more disservice because people remember that. You do yourself more of a disservice than not knowing. So the confident quality, there's an air of confidence that you have to have in order to be an entrepreneur. You have to, one, believe in who you are and what you're doing, right? You have to, one, believe in the mission. Why? Why are you doing this? Why, of all the things in the world that you could be doing, why are you doing this? And you'll get to that when you figure out, who am I helping? Who do I want to help? Where do I see the need? All of those things build confidence, because when you are confident about who you are, what you're doing, who you're doing it for, you can walk into any room. You're not intimidated by anybody. I will take a meeting with a multi-billionaire in a minute, in a heartbeat. I'm not intimidated by anyone in business at all. That's how you have to be able to express yourself in business. That's how you have to be able to express yourself in entrepreneurship. It's about knowing who you are, knowing who you serve, knowing that your product is the best. And in order to know your product is the best, you have to know what the rest are doing, because you have to be able to compare and contrast. Delivering all the time, every time, and people being happy with your service. That gives you the confidence to move forward in a way and to act in your own authority. You can't represent a brand, represent a business if you're shy about it. That's why I don't understand people who have opportunities to talk about their business and they don't want to talk. You have an opportunity to speak and you don't want to speak. Oh, I don't want to talk about my business. You don't want to talk about your business. You can't be in the shop, in the supermarket with me. If we're online, I'm a lady behind you, and we're engaged in conversation. And at some point before that conversation is over, I'm going to find out who you are, what you do, what you need, how I can possibly service you. How can I possibly add value to your life in anything that you're working on. Even if it's just to tell you, I try to add value to people no matter what way I come into contact with them. Even if it's to give them just a website. Hey, you know what? Go to this website. Do this. Do that. If it adds value, I try to do it, because people remember that. They leave with that. If they leave with nothing else, if you gave them a website that made a significant change to them, they will always remember you for that. So think in that way. Think, add value. Add value. You always want to be adding value. Adding value to yourself and adding value to other people. One of the things that I'm working on now is becoming fluent in Spanish. Why? Because there's a whole other world out there, and they speak Espanol. And I want to make sure that I have the ability to communicate with that population. There are women out there, they're Spanish-speaking, predominantly Spanish-speaking women who need what we have. I want to be able to communicate that's the most common language in the world. More countries speak Spanish than they speak English. So I've been working, and remember the app we started on last year, and for people who are not familiar, there's an app on iPhone. It's Duolingo, and you can learn any language. You can learn any language. And so we started with the Spanish-speaking app last year. It's great, but it is addictive. And now they have this thing where So it tracks every day you commit yourself to a goal, either 10 points, 20 points, the highest is 50 points. Of course, I commit myself to a 50-point goal. So 50-point exercise takes me about 20 minutes a day. Every time you get on and you do it, they keep track. So you kind of earn this streak. If you miss it for one day, it takes you back to 0. So, oh my gosh, I got so frustrated. I was getting up to like 60 days, 70 days, and then I would forget and not do it, and it would take me back down to 0. Well, it did that to me a number of times. So now I'm on day 104. My streak is on my 104th day. But I did some more research on the app. There is like a store in the app where as you're going, like I'm on level, Spanish has 25 levels. I'm on 23. So every time you go up a level, you earn what's called kind of like gold coins or something. And with those gold coins, you can buy a streak freeze. Who knew? All those times. And the thing is, and they just started this because when I first started the app, they wasn't doing this. Now they'll say if you miss a day and you have a streak, when you go to sign in, it'll pop up for $4.99. You can restore your streak. I've restored my streak like at least 5 times in a couple of weeks. At least 5 times because I'm forgetting to purchase the daggone streak freeze with the 10 things. And I have like 400 of them. So now I'm a lot better. So now I'm on day 104. I haven't restored it in probably like 2 weeks. But it's a great app. And any waiting minute I have, I'm on it and I use it. Free for Duolingo, not paid by them at all. So the confident quality in knowing who you are and what you're doing. Number 1, you have to present like you're the best person for the job. When you are, whether you're talking about yourself, whether you're talking about your product, and in here, we talk about, first of all, just a little recap. How many streams of income do we need minimally? 10. Minimally. You need minimally 10 streams of income to keep yourself afloat in any kind of way. If you only have one, you are at a significant disadvantage. At least 10. So you have to be thinking about your business in a way that, number 1, is you have more passive income than you have non-passive income. Like you don't want to be out there every day, every night, slaving, doing the work. You have to think about how to create digital content. You have to think about how to create residual from work that you do one time. Like writing a book. I get a residual check from that every 3 months. I wrote that book a couple years ago. You have to think about income in that way, where you're doing a lot less of the work and you're able to get that residual income. But in here, 10 streams. Everybody in here is working on their 10 streams. If you don't have them yet, we're developing them. 10 streams. Back to what I was saying. Present like the best person for the job. This, even when you don't think you are. This is where the confident piece comes in. Can you learn it? Do you have the tools to do it? Do you have the resources? Do you have the time? Well, all you have to do is present like you've already done all of that stuff. I'm the best person for the job. I'm the best person for the job. When you present in that way, people believe you. People believe you. The art of business is about influence. The art of business is about being able, having the ability to influence people. That's probably the greatest skill you can have. It's the skill of influence. It's the ability to be able to persuade people, whether you're persuading them to do something that's best for them, to go into to buy a particular service, to improve themselves. The art of entrepreneurship is influence. Influence, the ability to influence other people. So in doing so, you have to present like you're the best person for the job. Make and execute the hard decisions. Too many times, women of leaders, women of leadership, we set the hard decisions down and we make the smaller decisions. Or we throw the hard decision, or we allow, and this is the worst, allow the frontline people to execute the hard decisions. When it's a hard decision that needs to be made as a boss, make it. If we get a disgruntled person come, I have to show you something. If we get a disgruntled person come or call, I tell her or whoever answers to Give them, take their information, let them know I will get back to them. Because there's no reason for the frontline people to have any kind of disagreements with customers and clients that's calling into the business. If you're a boss, you have to boss up. You have to be willing, able, and ready to make the hard decisions and execute them and stand behind them and not put that weight on the people that's helping you to operate and move the mission forward. Refrain from hiding behind the gatekeepers. Is that. Number 4, take the fuzzy out of business. Unless you're a nonprofit, your goal is to make money. If it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. And even if you're a nonprofit, there's a business aspect to that you need to catch on to quick, because you'll be in and out of nonprofit in less than a couple of years if you haven't done the business side of operating a nonprofit organization. But for this, maybe we're going to talk about business in terms of making a profit, because that is why we're in business. If you're not, then I'm sorry, but what you're doing is called a hobby. Plain and simple. If you're not making any money from it. Unless you're develop thin so that you can swim with the sharks. Firm, immodest, no-nonsense stance. This is people know who you are when they interact with you. People know your position when they interact with you. You are a person who can deliver when people interact with you. You have to develop that. Fins keep sharks together. Fins allow sharks the ability. Can I have water, please? Allow sharks the ability to be able to swim in the water. You have to develop your fins. You need firm, immodest, no-nonsense stance. Stop saying I'm sorry. Nothing to be sorry about in business. Stop explaining away your value. Nothing is more, it saddens me really to see a business owner devalue themselves by explaining away why they charge what they charge. Oh, well, because I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to... No. In business, no, it is what it is. You have to be okay with people walking away, because the people that walk away are not your clients. Why are you trying to convince someone who isn't ready for what you have? That's where your confidence in the service that you provide, right, comes in, because that's going to play a part in your price points. Your demographic is going to play a part in your price points, and that's why you need to do your due diligence to know who you're talking to and who's ready to access your service. You can't think it. You can't stop explaining away your value. You're spending 20 minutes explaining to a person that you're going to make $50 from. Why you charge $50? Ridiculous. Men don't do that in business. It is what it is. And we have to learn to be the same way. It is what it is. If a person can't access your services at the price point, then be ready with a referral. You may not be ready for what I have, but here's X, Y, and Z. They could probably help you. I know someone who they've done some work for, or they have a pretty good reputation. They can probably help you. Stop explaining away your value. Be okay with the walkaway. Some of us are so desperate that we'll go down to nothing just to get the sale. That does not help you. It doesn't help your business, and it certainly doesn't help your mission. You have value. What you do have value. You are changing lives with what you do. That's why it's so critical and it's so important to be totally 100% invested in what you're doing as a business. You have to be bought into it, heart and soul, because you really have to believe that you are changing people's lives. When you believe that wholeheartedly, then you don't have any qualms about what you're charging. If you know it's going to be life-changing for that person, they just have to be willing to invest in themselves. That's something that you can't control. They're either willing to invest in themselves or they aren't, right? Avoid the gaslight. Has anyone ever heard of this term? So gaslighting is a term that's often used in the mental health industry. It describes manipulative behaviors where people try to get you to think that based on something you said or done, you're crazy. Like they actually manipulate you to think that. There's a movie, and I think I got it here. The movie is called Gaslight with Ingrid Bergman. And her husband was trying to get his hands, you know the movie, Heidi? Her husband was trying to get his hand on her jewels. And so he tried to manipulate her to think that she was crazy. Like he rigged up the light so every time she blinked, something would happen, and really tried to make her think she was crazy. Well, this happens in real life. This happens in business. People try to think that you're so far off base that you're nuts. It happens more often than not. And you need to know when you're being gaslit. You need to know and recognize when you're talking to a person and you're having that experience. I've had it quite a few times. And I'm looking at them and they're looking at me and I'm like, I'm not crazy. I'm not the one. But Heidi, you had an experience?
I'm laughing because my son will do this all the time. How could you say that? How could you think that?
So we have to, this is a real thing. And we have to avoid the gaslight. We have to avoid people taking what you say and trying to manipulate it to make it seem like it's so off balance and so out of whack that, hey, something's wrong with her. This happens to women in the business. This happens to women in the business world. When you have it, what you have seen as innovative, and probably everybody in the room think is innovative, is that one person that say, oh my gosh, she out of this world, she crazy. No, that's an innovation, and you need to be aware when people are trying to do this. Step 6, take the ass out of assertion. Your effectiveness does not need to be defined by dehumanizing or minimizing the contributions of other people. That's not how you exert assertion. That's not how you are most effective. You're most effective when you recognize the gifts that other people have and what they bring to the table. And as a leader, you're able to identify people by their gifts and bring those gifts to the center to move forward that mission. That's what makes you an effective leader. So please do take the ass out of assertion, because we all know them, we've seen them, we've worked with them, we probably have some in our families. Have a watchful eye. Exercise your empathy. This is the ability to be able to look at someone else from their point of view. The ability to be able to relate to people and understand. When you are designing your products and your services, you should be thinking like the person who's going to be accessing your services. If I was accessing this service, what would I need? When you're thinking and you're evolving and you're developing programs, that's how you're thinking. You're thinking like your client. What would I need? If I were going to make this decision, what would I need to be able to make this decision? You have to have a watchful eye. Exercise your empathy. Make your intentions known. A lot of times we get so, and granted, when you're an entrepreneur, you're passionate about this business. You're passionate about that thing that you believe that is going to change the world and may very well. However, how you make your intentions known to people that you're trying to buy into this process, because people have to buy into it, whether they're clients, whether they're family members, people, supporters, people have to buy into it. You have to make your intentions known. What do you want out of this? What is your end game? And you have to be able to communicate that. What is your end game? What do you want? When it's all said and done, what do you want to happen? How has or is your business going to leave this world a better place? When you're developing what your business is and you're developing the mission for your business, that's how you're thinking. You're thinking about how is what I'm doing right now going to leave the world in a better place. If you can't answer that, you need to start rethinking your business and rethinking why you're doing what you're doing. Because it's all about legacy. I don't want to leave here not knowing that I was here. I don't want to leave here when nobody knows I was here. When I leave, I want to leave behind something that's going to empower other people and continue to do what I've worked so hard to do. So when we think about business, and here one of the other things that we always talk about is you have to have a philanthropic component to your business. It can't be all about the dollar. There has to be something that you're tied to, that's tied to you, a cause that you're passionate about, that you feel like through something that you do, you can make some significant change in that particular area. Everybody knows for me it's addiction. My family was riddled with addiction. I've lost a lot to addiction. So for me it's addiction. For you it may be something else. But you have to find what that thing is and figure out a way to tie it into your business. Tune your tone and eliminate condescending language. Tune your tone, meaning have a decent tone. And this I have to practice because when I'm passionate, I'm loud. And I have to practice, and I practice at home because everything should start at home. And watch condescending language. Nothing irks my nerves. It's like screeching on a chalkboard for a grown woman to call me baby or sugar or sweetie or honey pie. I'm not baby, I'm not just sweetie or your honey pie. It's condescending. And I don't know, it's annoying to me. Is it annoying to anyone else? It's annoying to me. I can't stand it. Like literally it rings in my ear like a bell. Because I'm a grown woman. I'm some age. I'm a grown woman. I don't want to be your baby. I don't want to be your honey pie either. So yes, using condescending language. Those are ways in which we need to take the ass out of being assertive. Step 7, manage men with caution. Society still looks at men, no matter how many strides we've made, as the dominant sex when it comes to business. And there's a way that we need to deal with and we need to manage men. And there will be situations where when you are managing men. And you better remember a couple of things. Number 1, be fair. Be open. Be open to reason. I've seen women and I've been in situations where because she was the boss, no one else had value. No one else had value. No one else's opinions had value. It's kind of like, do what I say because I said it. That's not effective. And especially when you're working with men. When you're working with men, you have to be assertive. And you have to stand your ground. You have to draw a line. There has to be a whole lot less laughing because they misconstrue any of those actions at any given point in time. And then once you lose the respect, you've lost the ability to be able to manage them effectively. Be firm. Be firm. Your yes is yes and your no is no. That's what it says in the Bible. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. You could probably, I don't know when the last time I said that I was trying to do anything. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. If I can make it, I can make it. If I can't, I can't. But I'm never on the fence. It's like very few things I'm on the fence about. I'm usually pretty decisive in what I want to do for whatever the reason is. So be firm. And especially when you're dealing, again, when you're leading and dealing with men. Don't flirt. Because sometimes that it'll get you but so far. It'll get you but so far, and at the end of the day, it's not going to get you over the hump. It might get you humped, but it's not going to get you over the hump. So we have to learn when to turn on our lurdy charm. And sometimes when we're in the business, especially in this kind of setting where we need people to take us seriously, that's not the time. So don't flirt, because men take that a different way. And never cry. You don't cry in business. You cry at home. But I've seen people bawl out in the meeting, but you don't cry in business. There's no crying in business. There's crying when you go home. There's no crying in business. And business is always your game phase, no matter what's going on. I'm telling you. If we're in a meeting and you start sobbing, it's a wrap. You have to be strong in business because to show emotion is, think about, okay, so we have Hillary Clinton running as president. Do you think she's going to be able to sit in the Oval Office and when she's making a decision, well, preferably she's making the decision. I would hate for it to be Donald Trump making the decision, but anyway. Making a decision to do one thing or another. You can't cry in business. How you want to be the president of the United States of America, but you're going to cry in a meeting? You can't do that. Can't do that in business. You cry, but there's a time and place for it. In business, you always gain face and you always gain home. No matter how much it hurts. Of course, women, we have a hard time with this one, but we have to get better because it makes us look weak. Especially in an environment especially if you're in an environment that's consumed by men. It's like, oh, here she go again. Not in business. Last but not least, bring it back full circle. When you have an opinionated, ambitious, and decisive person, you'll get the title. Remember that you are the best individual to learn how. You're the best individual to change how people interact with you. You set the tone for how a person treats you. You teach people how to treat you. People only do what you allow them to do. They can't do any more or any less. So if you feel like you're being mistreated, it's because you've allowed that person the opportunity to do that. You're the best individual to change how people perceive you. Perception is reality for people. Remember that. It's real to them. Whatever it is real to them. So perception is reality. How they perceive you is how you are in their eyes and in their book. Best individual to change how people treat you. I just alluded to this on the first one with the interaction. You set up the course of a relationship. You set up the structure of a relationship. You are totally in control of how people treat you and how you allow people to treat you. And you're totally in control of knowing and of allowing yourself to be devalued as well. So if you are allowing yourself to be mistreated, that's an internal thing. That says more about you, less about the person. So we allow, you are the best individual to change how people treat you. How people respect you. If you respect yourself and you carry yourself in a certain manner, generally people will respect you. Going back to women leading in a male-dominated industry or women are present, if you become, the slut of the industry, for lack of better terms, then that's what people associate you. That's what people associate you as. That's what your business is. That is the perception that people are going to have of you, right? Makes sense. But you can't change how people feel about you. So don't waste your time. Because people are going to feel how they want to feel. Some people are set on feeling a certain way. And no matter what you do, no matter how much you try to change their mindset or change that experience, they will always feel that way. We thank you for joining us. Today. This is the end of our live streaming. If you have any questions, do put them in the comment section below. At some point today, I will get to those questions. Join us again. Bye-bye.